There are cars that simply grow old, and then there are cars that are completely forgotten by time. Buried beneath years of dust, grease, rust, and neglect, they slowly lose their identity until nobody remembers what they once were. This Audi A6 was one of those cars. Once a luxury sedan worth more than $27,000, it had been reduced to little more than a lifeless shell waiting for the scrapyard. Most people would have taken one look at it and walked away without hesitation, but one of our viewers saw something different. After watching our restoration videos for months, he decided to take a chance on a vehicle that everyone else had already given up on. For only around $400, he purchased this abandoned Audi A6 and brought it to our workshop with a single request. He wanted the car restored to perfection, because one day he planned to drive it to meet his future father-in-law. It sounded like a simple dream, but when the vehicle arrived, everyone quickly realized just how difficult that dream would be to achieve. The silver paint had long since faded. Deep scratches covered nearly every body panel. Rust was spreading across multiple sections of the car, and the headlights looked cloudy and worn. Opening the doors revealed an interior that had clearly suffered through years of abuse and neglect. Dirt covered almost every surface, the seats were heavily worn, the headliner sagged from age, and even the smallest details showed signs of deterioration. Underneath the vehicle, the situation was even worse. Corrosion had attacked the chassis. Rubber bushings had cracked from years of exposure, suspension components were badly worn, and fluid leaks could be seen in several places. Then we opened the hood, and that was when the true condition of the Audi became impossible to ignore. The smell of old oil immediately filled the workshop. Thick layers of sludge-covered engine components, grease had accumulated in every corner, and years of neglected maintenance had left their mark on nearly every part of the powertrain. Looking at it, many people would have considered the car beyond saving. It wasn't simply old, it was exhausted. But restoring forgotten machines is exactly why we do what we do. The first step was a complete teardown. Every bolt, hose, bracket, and component was carefully removed. The engine was lifted from the chassis, the transmission followed, and soon the rear axle, suspension system, fuel tank, and countless smaller parts were laid out across the workshop floor. As the Audi came apart piece by piece, hidden problems continued to reveal themselves. The steering rack was leaking badly, cooling hoses had become brittle with age, seals had completely failed, and corrosion had spread much deeper than we originally expected. The biggest challenge, however, remained the engine itself. Once fully disassembled, the damage became clear. The cylinder walls were heavily worn, piston rings could no longer seal properly, bearings showed significant wear, and the crankshaft carried visible scars from years of operation under poor conditions. Many repair shops would have chosen to replace the engine entirely, but we believed this Audi deserved a second chance. Every component was cleaned using industrial ultrasonic equipment. Years of dirt, oil, and carbon deposits slowly disappeared, revealing the true condition of each part. Precision measuring tools were used to inspect critical surfaces, while the engine block was mounted on a CNC boring machine and carefully machined back to factory specifications. Every measurement mattered, every adjustment required patience. There were no shortcuts. Day after day, the engine slowly came back to life. New bearings were installed, fresh piston rings replaced worn components, and every bolt was tightened according to factory torque specifications. Piece by piece, the heart of the Audi was rebuilt until it looked nothing like the neglected machine that had entered the workshop weeks earlier. While the engine rebuild continued, work on the chassis moved forward. Years of rust were removed through an intensive sandblasting process. Clean metal slowly emerged beneath the corrosion, suspension components were replaced, every rubber bushing was renewed, and multiple layers of anti-corrosion protection were applied across the underbody. What was once a rusty and weakened foundation was transformed into something strong and reliable once again. Then came the stage everyone had been waiting for. Every dent was repaired, every scratch was removed, and countless hours were spent preparing the body for paint. Finally, the Audi entered the paint booth where fresh silver paint covered the vehicle in smooth, flawless layers. As the color spread across the body, the transformation became dramatic. The tired shell that had arrived at the workshop began to disappear, replaced by a luxury sedan that looked ready to return to the road. After polishing was completed, the paint reflected light like a mirror. For a few moments, everyone in the workshop stopped working simply to admire the result. It was difficult to believe this was the same vehicle that had once looked destined for the scrapyard. The interior received the same level of attention. The seats were restored, the headliner was replaced, trim pieces were refinished, and additional sound insulation was installed throughout the cabin. Every detail was carefully addressed because true restoration is about more than appearance. It is about bringing an entire experience back to life. Finally, after weeks of hard work, the moment arrived. The rebuilt engine returned to the engine bay, the suspension was assembled, the fuel tank was installed, and hundreds of components found their way back to their original positions. Everything had led to this single moment. The key was inserted into the ignition. The workshop fell silent. 1 second passed, then another. The key turned. Suddenly, the engine roared to life. The smooth and powerful sound echoed through the workshop, and smiles instantly appeared across every face. The Audi that had once been dismissed as scrap metal was alive again. Its paint gleamed under the lights, its interior looked factory fresh, and its engine performed beautifully. Standing before us was no longer a forgotten wreck, but a fully restored Audi A6, ready for a new beginning. And perhaps when the owner finally drives this car to meet his future father-in-law, the most impressive thing will not be the luxury badge on the hood or the shine of the paint. It will be the incredible journey hidden behind every restored bolt, every repaired panel, and every hour of dedication. A journey that proves that even the most forgotten machine can be given a second chance when passion, patience, and craftsmanship refuse to give up.